I'm trying to think about something with the Cowboys I don't like. Dak's always been a good quarterback. He's having a great year. The offensive line, old and new players, really, really strong. Pass rush, ditto. Weapon, CeeDee Lamb's become a star, an emerging tight end star. And now they have a great kicker that never misses, which has taken a huge burden off late game field position and situational football with Mike McCarthy. Just send out the kicker. He'll hit one from 59 yards. So it took Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones. It took them a while post Jimmy Johnson to create a well-oiled machine, 27 years to be precise, but that's what they look like. You know, there's a lot of new owners in this league, and they're very, very impatient. Jerry Jones is not. The Mike McCarthy hire, he kept believing in it. The move off Kellen Moore, Jerry was talked into it. Still defending, paying Dak big money, and getting rid of Zeke. 4 for 4. The only question now appears to be, can they beat the Niners? And they even have that sort of going for them, the revenge factor, after getting humiliated the first time they met in the Bay Area. So the Eagles looked old and slow and a little lost offensively, and the Cowboys look fast and young and in their prime with an absolute laser focus on what they do well. Pass the football and rush the other quarterback. I said for years and years, I always thought Dallas was pretty good. And I was right. Their fans, the media, always claiming they were elite. And I was like, no, they'll be pretty good. They have a winning record. They're well run, not brilliantly run. They're well run. But I think they've turned the corner as a franchise. And again, with all these new, impulsive, rich, wealthy owners, fire. Always got to be something new in the building. Jerry's been old school money. Jerry's like, I believe in my choices. I believe in my draft picks. I'm going to mostly nibble occasionally and go get a Stephon Gilmore for a 5th rounder. But I believe in my coaches. I believe in my head coach. I believe in my quarterback, and I'm going to stick with it. And you know what? They've been right. Dallas always felt like they had good players. Now they've got very good players, a handful of great players, and tremendous chemistry. The offensive line is a mix of old guys like Tyron Smith and new young players like Tyler Smith. They've got an old veteran quarterback and a new young star cornerback they got in the 5th round. They've got an old receiver. They've got a new receiver. They've got a new tight end. It's a mix of old and new. And again, it goes back to, for years and years, Jerry stuck with Jason Garrett, and nobody liked it. But they won a lot of games with Jason Garrett. And then it's Mike McCarthy. And we were all upset with Mike McCarthy. And Jerry's like, no, we're going to tweak the staff. I'm going to get the best defensive coordinator, in my opinion, in the league. I'm going to stay with Mike McCarthy. I'm going to keep paying Dak. And Jerry's not loyal to a fault. He moved off that linebacker, Jalen Smith. He moved off Zeke. But Jerry's always been more loyal than a lot of the new money. The David Teppers in Carolina, new coach, new quarterback, new picks, trade this, trade that. Jerry's always like, no. And Jerry and Steven are risk takers. And they view themselves as good talent evaluators, and today they get the last laugh. Most of the moves worked. Stephon Gilmore for a 5th rounder looks brilliant. He's great in big games. Brandon Cooks, we're like, oh, please, he's bounced around the league. He's now becoming pretty important. That speed jumps out. That Tyler Smith, Cowboys have taken a lot of offensive linemen in the 1st round. A lot of teams won't. Tyler Smith now is excellent. Deron Bland, that corner. You know, Trayvon Diggs goes down. We're like, oh, this is big trouble. No, not really. This 5th round kid is inexpensive and great. So, but I think a lot of it goes back to patience. I've talked about this a lot. Owners now are worth billions and billions of dollars. And so firing a coaching staff is a rounding error. Get a new quarterback, fire a staff. Jerry is maintained. He went a little longer with Garrett than you were comfortable with. He's gone with Mike McCarthy a little longer than you've been comfortable with. They've paid Dak a little more than you've been comfortable with. But that loyalty is starting to pay off. I always said for years, Dallas just loves their draft picks. But it does take longer for players. Helps when they're in a stable organization. They've nibbled just enough at other players, Stephon Gilmore, Brandon Cooks, but it's mostly drafting, taking some risks. They took CeeDee Lamb. A lot of us, myself included, thought you don't need a receiver. Well, he's become a star. Micah Parsons, that's a good pick. We'll see how it works. He's a star. They've taken offensive lineman Tyler Smith. Ooh, that's kind of a big risk, right? Oh, he's become a star. So patience matters. These are young players, and you've got coaches trying to solve the riddle in the Rubik's Cube of winning, and it takes time. And as crazy as we think Dallas and Jerry Jones are, they're actually a very stable franchise. They may not be the Steelers, but I'd argue the Steelers are loyal to a fault. Jerry's just loyal, not necessarily to a fault. They keep winning. They stay relevant. Steelers now can't get the quarterback right. Dallas's quarterback's never played better. Steelers have a defensive coach. Cowboys have an offensive coach. Patience has mattered, and Dak has never played better. Dak has never looked better. Dak has never held himself to as high a standard as he is now. All right, let's talk Kansas City. They're the reigning dynasty, and dynasties go in stages. The first stage, Patrick Mahomes was cheap. The second stage, Patrick Mahomes is expensive, and the rest of the team needs to get cheap. That's where they're at, and the margins are shrinking. Now, we all acknowledge the NFL calls too many penalties, but the penalty they called yesterday, if you really take a deep breath, Kadarius Toney was offside. So it wasn't particularly close. It's not particularly close. But this comes back to once you paid Mahomes the big money, you got to get cheaper elsewhere. And that means to get cheaper, you got to get younger. And when you get younger, you make more mistakes. And Kansas City now beats themselves. Kadarius Toney, there's a reason the Giants got rid of him. Young receiver, lines up offsides. Rashee Rice, young receiver, very talented, had a key fumble. So when Mahomes becomes the number one cap hit in the entire league, and that's what he is, you have to get cheaper elsewhere. That means you can't keep Tyreek Hill, and you can't keep left tackle Orlando Brown. What did Greg Cosell say last week? Patrick Mahomes does not look comfortable. He doesn't trust his tackles. He doesn't have to come out and say it. You don't have to come out and say a lot of things in life. They're true. So you don't have somebody as explosive as Tyreek Hill. You had to get rid of a very good corner. You moved him off to San Francisco, Ward. So that's the reality. Tom Brady's the GOAT for a lot of reasons. One of them, beyond work ethic and talent, he was never a big cap hit relative to his talent. And so even in the NFL, you get what you pay for. And once you pay Chris Jones, he's worth it. Travis Kelce, he's worth it. Patrick Mahomes, he's worth it. You got to go bargain shopping. Now, some of the bargain shopping has worked on defense, but a lot of the offensive bargain shopping hasn't worked. Look at Kansas City's last 6 games. They're averaging 19 points. That's what they are. Last year, they averaged 29. They were number 1 in the league. So they can't fall behind. They don't finish drives. They make more mistakes. And we've been talking about this for 20 years. Drew Brees didn't make a lot of money, Saints good. Took a lot of money, Saints not good. Redid his contract to be team-friendly, Saints got good again and won a Super Bowl. That's the way it works. Brady always understood that. So Mahomes is great, but he's now highly expensive. And you got to get younger and cheaper. And younger and cheaper means more mistakes. But this offense, this is stage 2 of the dynasty. Stage 2 is Patrick's expensive, Kelsey's expensive and limping a lot. Chris Jones is really expensive. We got to find a replacement for that. But this year they don't have one yet. And some of their key young pieces defensively are hurt. And the young receivers keep making mistakes. Stage 2 of the dynasty. Remember stage 1? Tom Brady's cheap, a lot of rings. Tom Brady more expensive, Randy Moss years, Super Bowls, no rings. Then at the end, Tom got more rings. It goes in stages. This is stage 2. And stage 2 can get very frustrating, and you start blaming people outside of your control. And it's getting called more this year. But I don't think a veteran wide receiver would have lined up there. Toney did. He's young. It's why the Giants bailed on him. He was immature, flaky, not trustable. Toney, for the Chiefs, just cost him a game. He's got a lot of drops earlier in the year. Could have cost him a game. This is part of dynasties, and it's tough. And you win all these close games for years, and now you're starting to lose these close games. They'll reboot. I still think they're okay, but the margins are tiny. The AFC now does not have a great team. They've got several good ones. Teams like Denver feel like they're hot. Teams like Kansas City feel like they're not. They're all smushed together. Doesn't mean they can't win the AFC, but it doesn't look and feel like it did in stage 1. Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.